Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be building a range top cover, also known as a noodle board. We're going to be using 5 1/4 inch pine shiplap and 1x4 primed pine board. We'll link on the bottom for the description. First I measured to see how wide I was going to make the noodle board. We decided on making it 34 inches wide, and we're cutting down the pieces for the size. Calculated that we were going to need 5 pieces at that size. We're cutting it down using the miter saw, but since these are straight cuts, it would be pretty easy to use a manual saw. After each cut, I continued to measure just to make sure I was staying in place and not to get too far and have to redo it. Here's the board after I got all the 5 pieces together and the 2 side pieces where I'll be attaching my handles. Just use clamps to hold it down just to see what it was going to look like prior to painting it. This is just the side of the shiplap. As you can see, in order to have the exact size, I took the 2 end pieces and I actually ended up taking one of the sides of the shiplap and cutting it down so I would have a flat edge, as opposed to having the lip that comes on the shiplap. We're going to be painting them white. Here's the boards laid out after the first coat of paint. In total, we ended up giving it 3 coats. Here's another example of the side piece that I cut, where on one side it's flat and the other side has the shiplap portion, and then here's the one from the other side where I did the same thing, made a straight cut. After the paint, we're using some clear coat over it in a spray can. Here are the handles that we'll be using. I ended up using a little piece of stir stick from Lowe's as a template, so I can use it, put it on top of the side pieces where they're going. Made the calculations to find the center of it. I actually wrote them on the stir stick and applied it to it. Based on the instructions I just showed, it told me what drill bit size to use. So I had marked the pieces on there. And now I'm going to drill the holes that are going to go all the way through to hold the handles. I put a piece of wood on the bottom just to make sure that when I went through the piece of wood, I didn't accidentally hit the tile or anything else. Finished with the first one, and then I just did the same thing on the second one. Right now I'm trying to find a drill bit that is the same size as the pan head screws that are used to hold on the handle. This is so I can countersink it and the screw head goes inside of the wood. I ended up going in about 1/4 inch. That completely had the screw head inside of it. This way, when I laid it on top of the shiplap, it could lay perfectly flat. if you are doing this, you also have to be careful not to drill completely through, just enough to secure the screw inside. Because if you go all the way through, then your screw head will not have anything to attach to, and it'll go all the way through. There's going to be a little bit of trial and error. At the beginning, I didn't know how far I needed to go in to make sure the screw was seated all the way, or the screw head was seated all the way in there. So I tried it a couple times, ended up testing it, making sure it was working, and then the ones that were not quite right, just drilling them a little bit more. Now it's time to try and put the handle on. Make sure everything's snug and still fit. This is a little bit more of me trying it to make sure that they were going in all the way. Make sure you clean out the inside so you fit the screw head inside. Got a little bit of sawdust on the ones that were left over. I was just cleaning them off before putting them together. What I did, was trying to show there, was I actually wrote numbers on the bottom of each one, 1 through 5, so I know in what order they went. And that was the best way they fit together. Making sure they're all lined up properly. Once you have the side to side, I started putting the clamps together. Started on the outside edges and then worked my way in. Now to the second side where I want to do the same thing. As you go from one side to the other, just got to make sure you continue keeping them straight so it doesn't go from one side to the other on you. Came in handy to have a lot of clamps to be able to do this. And just turn it on its side, and I had 1 1/4 inch black drywall screws. The size that I used was 1 1/4, and that was because the total thickness of both of the boards together was 1.5 inches. And you just got to make sure that the screws that you pick are less so you don't accidentally drill all the way through and the top of the screw comes out. I added 2 per board on each side, so in total ended up being 20 screws. I staggered them just a little bit just to make sure to get snug and to try and fit it, and get the top board as close to it at the bottom with the least amount of gap. Making sure they're nice and tight so you get all the way through and the board is nice and snug to the top. That was the last screw going in. Taking the clamps off now. And that's it. It's done. There's the front side. Handles are nice and secure. And here it is sitting on our stove.